what does it really take to lead, a real transformation of a whole enterprise? One of the themes we've heard is that for many organizations, agility is happening somewhere in the organization, but it hasn't really taken root in the whole organization. And a lot of that is to do with leadership. And what we'll share here is a synopsis of many years of extensive research and experience with many different organizations. I've personally worked with thousands of leaders, hundreds of leadership teams across over 100 organizations over the last 15 years on the kind of journey that we're going to discuss in this session. And what I'm sharing today is an evolving body of knowledge. Actually sharing it in a way that it hasn't been shared before, so something new, but it really builds on a body of knowledge that has been developed over the last 10 years through extensive application in many different organizations. The first reflection, maybe to set it up, is that we're going through a very profound change from the industrial economy that has really dominated certainly developed economies over the last couple of hundred years to what we might refer to as the digital economy that's emerging, or you may prefer another term. And in the industrial economy, there was a clear set of ways in which the system was set up. And the reflection here is that by looking at performance, organization, and leadership, we can understand that the performance of an organization really reflects its design. And the design of the organization reflects the mindsets and capabilities of its leaders, of its designers. So the industrial economy, really the focus from a performance point of view, has been financial and operating results. And that's really the focus that most boards and executive teams who still think in that way, that is their focus. Traditionally, the organization was designed as more of a machine, as we've been discussing over the last 24 hours, as a sort of static bureaucracy, really designed to capture value in protected markets. And leadership was really all about managing people, and it was primarily exercised by individual leaders who are seen as in charge of the organization. This has worked remarkably well. It transformed the agrarian economy into the industrial economy and has created enormous prosperity and advances in human well-being around the world. So there's nothing actually wrong with that. In fact, it's all good. We're just getting to the stage now where it's time to evolve to really a whole new era and a whole new way of thinking about organizations and thinking about and exercising leadership. The focus is increasingly, from a performance point of view, more holistic one, on what I've started thinking about as thriving, and many others are starting to use that term. Really sustainable and meaningful impact for all stakeholders. Recognizing that the organization is actually a human system. I think this is very central to what agility is all about. And evolving it more as a dynamic network, creating value in open markets, is a very different proposition from the kind of design needed in the industrial economy. And in order to accomplish this, we need a fundamental transformation in leadership and how we think about what leadership is all about. And increasingly, we're recognizing that leadership in this new era is more about helping people and should be exercised primarily by leadership teams who are there to serve the organization. Digging into that, we've recognized, and again, this is what I was just alluding to, we've evolved this over the last 10 years, and that arguably there are 5 meta practices that are useful for leaders to think about and to become proficient in. And all of these are, you can see the phrase used here as beyond. So it includes the traditional ways of leading, but we're now going beyond that. We're moving to really this new stage, or this whole new era in which we're all operating. And we'll dig briefly into each of these 5 dimensions. Let's start with the one at the bottom, which is really the foundation and the starting point. Beyond professionalism to wholeness. Traditionally, leaders focused on being professionals, and encouraging everybody in the organization to show up with a high degree of professionalism. And here the focus is about, ensuring people meet standards, essentially, for myself as a leader and everybody else in the organization. And the underlying mindset is one of expectation. What are the expectations that we're all seeking to meet? We're evolving now to this new level that, Frederick Lurie in his book, Reinventing Organizations, called wholeness, which we really like. The idea of showing up as a whole human being with an orientation as a leader to help people realize their full potential with a mindset of courage. You see here 3 practices. We're encouraging leaders to start learning and become proficient in, welcoming everybody to show up really as their whole authentic selves, fostering true holistic well-being in the organization. And, I'll spend a minute on this last one, evolving consciousness, becoming more aware of self, of others, and of systems. And this last one really is a fundamental entry point we're finding into this whole new approach of leadership, and really addresses what Steve referred to at the end of the last session as speaking to people's hearts, not just their minds. As part of these experiences, we're inviting leaders to really deepen personal consciousness and really start there on this transformational journey. Become more self-aware of what's going on inside ourselves, and what are the feelings that we have, what are the thoughts that we're holding, and how does that translate into the decisions we make, and how we show up, the behaviors that we exhibit. And there's actually a set of practices that leaders can learn, that all of us can learn, to become more self-aware, to become more aware of others and of systems that really put us more at choice. One of the themes Peter spoke about last night was the pervasive sense of fear in so many organizations. Fear is a deep thing. Fear is often unconscious for many of us, but it underlies a lot of our behavior and puts us more into that mindset of thinking about what do others expect of me, and make sure that I comply with what others want of me. Once we become aware of that, we can start to let it go and to lean more into our true authentic selves. What is our core purpose and passion in the world? What are we fundamentally seeking to create and contribute in the world? So starting with this practice is really fundamental. And we can talk more about this as we get into dialogue a bit later. The next practice is, beyond performance to impact. And here, traditionally, in the role of manager, leaders really focused on ensuring people deliver results. And the mindset underlying this was one of winning. And the evolution here is to take on the role of visionary, to really help people thrive and improve the world with a mindset of possibility. The practices that we see helpful here are about purpose and progress and prosperity. So we've been working recently with one of the world's leading agribusiness organizations. And they've been going through learning and applying these practices and starting to completely reimagine how they think about their organization and their ecosystem within which they operate. And it's unleashed incredibly exciting new opportunities, all to do with sustainability and improving the lives of farmers and consumers and societies more broadly around food sustainability and making more food available to more people around the world. Next practice is moving beyond command to collaboration. So again, the traditional approach from a leadership point of view we describe as the role of director, commanding through hierarchies with a mindset of authority. And the shift is into the role of catalyst, helping people collaborate in networks with a mindset of partnership. It's a profound shift. The practices here are about shifting from a team of unit leaders to a true leadership team, engaging and empowering everybody within the organization you lead to collaborate with each other more horizontally, not working up and down the hierarchy all the time. And also engaging, collaborating with people across the enterprise and externally. We've just kicked off some of this work with one of the leading payments providers in the world. And the senior executive team that we're working with is starting to dig into this first one, about shifting from a team of unit leaders to a true leadership team, and recognizing how profound of a shift that is, and how the way the organization is set up, as we were talking about in the last session, the way metrics are set up, the way job descriptions are defined, and so on, are for each leader to really be optimizing and maximizing the unit they lead. And it's a profound shift to start recognizing that that's not actually my whole job, or perhaps even my primary job. Perhaps it's more important to recognize that I'm a member of the leadership team of the organization as a whole, and I need to start leaning into that and contributing and collaborating with my colleagues to really shape the whole system and not just optimize my part of it. Fourth practice is moving beyond competition to co-creation. So shifting from the traditional role of what we describe as planner, capturing profits for shareholders with a mindset of scarcity, to co-creation, really, in the role of architect, shaping the system to help people co-create value for all stakeholders, not just profit for shareholders. And here the underlying mindset shift is to one of abundance. And a lot of this taps into these practices reflect what Rita was just talking about. So it's about understanding how to attract and flow resources, talent and capital, information and other resources across the organization in a continual, more fluid kind of way of flowing resources. Constantly innovating and enhancing at the different levels of technologies, businesses and portfolios. And Rita explained really well how to think about the whole portfolio of activities and initiatives and businesses that we're involved in, and to be thinking at every level of the portfolio continuously, with a very strong lens on just delivering distinctive value to all stakeholders. And then really thinking at the level of the ecosystem and thinking beyond one's own organization, but thinking about how do we engage with and adapt to and also help shape the ecosystem very much more with a mindset of cooperation rather than that traditional mindset of competition. We're working with one of the leading pharmaceutical organizations in the world who have been on this journey for a couple of years now. And they are totally reimagining their portfolio of businesses. They're starting to think about how do they shape and help enhance the healthcare systems of countries around the world. They operate in over 140 countries. They're starting to engage seriously with the regulatory authorities and others within each of those ecosystems in each of those countries, and fostering a conversation about how do we really enhance the system as a whole, and what role can we as an organization play in that? How can we think about the whole patient journey end to end and the value that's created for patients at each stage of that journey? And what can we do to contribute and enhance the value that patients are experiencing at each part of the journey? And then the fifth shift is beyond control to evolution. So shifting from the traditional role of maybe what we refer to as the role of controller, minimizing variance to plan with a mindset of certainty, into the role of coach, helping people evolve in rapid cycles with a mindset of discovery. Here the practices are about shifting to a much more rapid operating cadence of 90-day cycles, with a focus on clear outcomes, prioritize initiatives, and pausing every 90 days to truly reflect on what went well, what could go better, and what to continue, change, and stop in the next 90 days. One of the things we touched on in the last session was the need for leaders to really be able to think about both executing today's business and co-creating tomorrow's business in parallel, and to be able to segregate the portfolio of activities, initiatives that they're championing into these different buckets, so that while executing today's business, the organization is also focused on co-creating tomorrow's business. And then we're finding increasingly important to add on and let go of yesterday's business. We're working with one of the leading component manufacturers in the automotive industry. And recently in a session, the CEO and senior leadership team we're reflecting on what a profound insight this is, and how they focused they are on just executing today's business. And if they step back and start recognizing that they've got to think about all three dimensions of executing today, co-creating tomorrow, and letting go of yesterday, it creates a frame that they can use to think about the work that they're doing as a leadership team, but also the work that they're encouraging others across the organization to focus on. And in co-creating tomorrow's business, thinking about it less in a deliberate way, which is the traditional approach of a small group coming up with plans and cascading them down the organization and asking everybody to implement the plans, to more of an emergent approach of continual experimentation and scale up and continuous improvement. Collectively, this adds up to a profound shift in leadership. And, as I've been indicating, it's a shift in capabilities and knowledge and skills, but it's also a shift in mindsets, a fundamental shift in mindsets that's multidimensional, and really a shift in operating models as individual leaders, as in leadership teams and collectively, and aggregates up to really a new set of roles of leaders, from the traditional roles of manager, director, planner, controller, and professional, to new roles of visionary, catalyst, architect, coach, and showing up as a whole human being.